I'm Leon Thompson, and I'm from Bigfoot Okanagan, or at least I do research out of the Okanagan area for Bigfoot Okanagan. And I'm in the mental health field, and I understand that this topic can be kind of, crazy sounding, same ways. So I believe in UFOs, and I believe in, flat earth theory and stuff, and I kind of say, it kind of goes flat earth theory, and then it goes Bigfoot community, and then it goes, I don't want to say this, it'll cause some problems for some people, but evolutionists and creationists, because I'm really interested in the scientific method. I'm not interested in the story or the tradition, or as Neil deGrasse Tyson says, the biggest mystery of the human condition is that we think we know enough about a topic that we think we're right, but we don't know enough about the same topic to realize we're absolutely wrong. And so thing I comment to a lot of people, because I'm all about education, and it's about, do you want to know what you're looking at or don't you? And unfortunately, the human condition has all these different mechanisms, executive functions in the brain that can fool you pretty easy, and especially if something's turning into a belief system, it can. The idea of the belief system can lead you down roads that you don't want to really go down when you're looking at science. It doesn't matter what it's about, Bigfoot or anything. It's about any topic, really. Mm-hmm. And you can fall into what's called thought traps. Thought traps are kind of where you believe something to be true. Yeah. You're not realizing your brain is producing it, though. And then your brain also starts looking for evidence to confirm that. And the example of that would be if you've bought yourself a new car, mm-hmm. And you found a car that you really like, that you want to buy, and all of a sudden you start seeing them all over the place. It's not like they're cranking them out, but what your brain is doing is, because you've said with intent to your system, I like this car, it starts showing you it more. Yeah. So in the Bigfoot community, we have what's called Bigfoot on the brain. And so everything's a Bigfoot. Tree stumps, burnt tree stumps especially, this evidence, that evidence, and we can talk a little bit about that, about what people would view as being evidence for a Bigfoot, and see whether or not there's any holes in that idea or not. And again, it's not about trying to prove anyone wrong. It's really about trying to be consistently solid. And I'd be going on a little bit of a limb here. I mean, I just presently walked through a fellow's death with him from New York, that out of the hundreds of people I have heard their stories, his, to me, is he saw something. And I'm used to dealing with deception in regards to dealing with people who are very deceptive. Mm-hmm. And I read body language. And so it's that part of the mystery. And everyone likes a mystery, and I like a mystery. It's not that I don't like a mystery, but my goodness, if you're going to keep telling me Santa exists and I know Santa's not existing, or you're trying to tell me magical ponies are existing, no, that ain't going to help. And some people should maybe take a look at Carl Sagan's, I think he's got a video online called The Dragon in the Garage. And it's a good way of understanding how the brain works. So if I tell you a story, and it's a story that happens to be incredible, I have to have evidence to help you understand what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. If I keep making up stories or answers to questions that don't answer the story, then I'm going to have more questions. And so that can be a problem sometimes for people if they're trying to figure out things. So I got into this because one day, because I deal a lot with some pretty heavy clients and heavy situations. And I remember sitting in my office one day saying, oh God, I have got need a break from this. Yeah. And that psychological break, if it's really hard when people are discharging their energy, especially if a person's a therapist or counselor that know what I'm talking about, into an environment which is your office, and you now carry it even though they've walked out. Mm-hmm. Your energy is now in your system. Yeah. And you can have a few tough clients like that. And that particular day, this is 7 years ago, mm-hmm. I had that hit me, and I thought, God, I need a break from this. Yeah. And so I sat back in my chair, and I thought, what should I do? And I study systems, and I thought, why don't you go look for Sasquatch? And I thought, well, there's a neat idea, And it was weird, because I'll tell you my story of what I think happened to me when I was younger. And I don't lean on this to say Sasquatches are real. It's just a memory that came up. I'm also familiar with how the brain works. I'm also very familiar with how memories work in the brain and how your brain will add on to memories. But there's other parts of my life that when I was younger, this is a little heavy for people, so it might trigger some people. Just give me a trigger warning. I was sexually abused when I was 8 months old. I was also sexually abused between 11 to 13. So I have to figure out, was I somebody as an adult who was sexually abused as an 8-month baby, or 11 to 13? I know I was, because I had my cognitive brain available. It's a different memory track compared to when you're in your primal instinct, everything's on automatic primally in your brain. Or was I a person an adult who thought he was? You see the difference in the two?
Yeah.
And so my memory, and this is when I spoke in Merit on Bigfoot, I said to everybody, I want to do a survey. There's about 300 people there, and I said, I would like to do a survey with everybody. And they said, okay. I said, I want you to raise your hand if you're a fairly honest person. I want you to raise your hand if you're fairly trusting. Put up your hand. I want you to raise your hand if you believe in people. I want you to raise your hand if you've ever hurt somebody that you love. Yeah. Okay. And I said, now if you've raised your hand on any of those things, those will set you up into being deceived because you're trusting. And if you're curious about something, and this is the thing about the social media or social networks that are on the line right now, it's really difficult for the brain to decipher who is true and who's not. You're true, honest, I'm true, I'm sincere, I have a trusting regulator. I'm assuming that I'm going to go on a channel, whether it be Bigfoot or anything else, and I can trust the person. But what ends up happening is I put that trust out there, not vetting to see whether the person has validity that I should actually be entrusting them. And then as time goes forward and you do research and you start meeting these people, you realize there's something off with what they're talking about. And again, remember, I wanted to relieve myself of a psychological carrying of being in people's minds.
Yeah.
So I thought, Bigfoot, A, I'm in the bush, B, I don't have to deal with any craziness. And so I thought, and then I realized, I think it was by year 3, I realized what kind of system I had walked into. And what that was definitely a closed system compared to open system. Open systems are, you're allowed to ask questions. Open systems are about spontaneity, vitality, and creativity. Closed systems are about rigidity, control, and power. Shh. You're asking too many questions. You're not asking the right questions. Do you really believe in Bigfoot?
Interesting.
You know what I mean? And the thing is, when I teach that stuff, I can't shut that off. I have to find out if I'm studying systems, if it's an open system. And the good thing about systems theory is it's like a blueprint you can lay on any kind of system. Workplace, family system, a religious system. And what you do with the blueprint is you look for certain questions that are on the grid that you put down on the community. Who are the stars? Why are they the stars? What is the narrative? And this is a very key part of when you're doing any research on Bigfoot is be cautious of the narrative you're hearing. If you have a trusting regulator and you're honest and you are fair and you are truthful and you are honest, does not mean necessarily the person you're listening to and watching. Because on that screen there, well, you can't see it right now, but on that screen there, your brain likes patterns. It sees that there's 50,000 subscribers to this channel. Numbers to the brain means truth. Doesn't necessarily mean it is truthful. But your brain doesn't know that. And you're not your brain. There's a great book out there called that, You're Not Your Brain. I encourage people to read it. Because there's other forces that are at work that try to help you do that. So the idea of my experience, did you want me to talk about that now?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure,
okay.
yeah.
So one of the things that I never thought about it until I decided Sasquatch came in my brain for that one day at work, and I thought to myself, well, maybe that's one of those things of your subconscious pulling something up that you forgot about when you're younger. That's what I was going back to when I was younger, being abused. And I had to figure out what I saw. Did I see what I think I saw, or was I an adult who thinks he saw a Sasquatch? Now, mine was so bizarre and so weird that I didn't tell anybody. until I met Thomas Steenberg. He's one of the authors of this book here and a couple of other books. And Thomas, I made arrangements. He's up in Mission, and I made arrangements to go up and talk to him. And he's been doing it for over 40 years. He's got 4 or 5 books out or something like that. And Thomas is very scientific and solid. And he said to me, one of the first things he said to me, I said, Thomas, what do you think about the Bigfoot community? He says, the inmates have taken over the asylum. Now, I'm a pretty positive guy. I don't like to say that about things, but I like to figure out, okay, what's the guy mean by that? Is it as bad as what I think that would mean? The guy's been doing it for 4 years. He's a great guy. He's an honest guy. So you can lay your money on what he says. He's not out to manipulate you or control you or be famous. He's worked a lot with TV shows that everyone would know about Bigfoot and stuff like that. And so I was up there doing what you're doing to me. You're interviewing me, and I'm interviewing him. And I had just told him my story of what happened to me on the Trans-Canada Highway. And what it was when I was younger, about 9 years old. I was driving with my family to Victoria to visit my grandmother. And my older brother above me is in the back seat with me, and my parents are driving the car. And we drove by these chain lakes. And we're from BC, so the nice thing about BC is we have those smaller lakes, and they're crystal clear. The water's crystal clear, right? But they're small. And as we were driving by one of these chains, there's 3 lakes, and there's this one lake that was there. I looked over, and I come from, hunters and fishermen and stuff like that, so I know what a moose is and a deer is and that. And I looked out in the middle of the lake, and there was a moose in the middle of the lake. And the moose was nodding its head down under the water and then browsing from underneath the weeds underneath and stuff like that, which is nothing new. Now, this is the strange part. The part I was saying to everybody, I don't want to look like I'm crazy. Yeah. Because on the back of the moose wasn't a Sasquatch riding it like a cowboy. There was something that was small and black. And the funny thing was, when I told Thomas this story, I didn't say Sasquatch. Yeah. I said to him, there was something on the back of the moose. A moose has a hump like this, and then it dips its head down and it starts munching. And as I was watching this happen in the car, and I know it's a moose, perfect day, blue skies, crystal lake water, shallow lake, about to a moose's upper thigh kind of thing. And as the moose head goes down, there's this black object that's going down its neck. And it goes back up, and I'm thinking to myself, what the hell's that? And then we're still driving. We're not driving, it's an old Meteor, so it's back in the 70s, And so we're driving, and the moose did the same thing, and this thing came down its neck again. And then I noticed this little extension came out, and it was like a little arm. And the arm came into the water and kind of messed around with the water a little bit. And then the moose came up, and the thing went back down its neck. Whatever was on its neck didn't look like it was upset. Didn't look worried. The moose didn't seem concerned at all. And I thought to myself, as we were seeing, I'd seen it one more time, and then we got around the corner where we're no longer viewing I'm no longer seeing the lake, and I said to everyone in the car, hey, did you guys see that? Did you guys see that? And they all said, see what? That monkey on the back of that moose. And what did they do? Of course, they ridiculed me. Yeah. What do you think I did? Well, I shut up. And then again, who am I going to tell that story to? So for the longest time, I never said anything about that story because it just didn't make any contextual sense. Now, because I'm very scientific, I like to take people for what they would say, and so I had to use that same principle for myself. And I thought to myself, and I had to wait till this thing called the internet came along, where it really started showing a lot of different species mothering other species. Not saying it's a Sasquatch, but it's a possibility. I can't put any stock in it. I couldn't prove that to anybody, but it's certainly something that my brain remembers it on the same level of understanding how the brain works when you're trying to remember something where you're quite young and your brain is not feeding on the memory or adding to the memory. One of the stories Thomas shared with me was there's a neighborhood down in the Washington state, and they kept getting a phone call of something strange in this lady's property. So two of the officers were dispatched, and they seen this thing cross the road, and they didn't know what it was either. It was freaking them out. And they were on the radio talking back to their office saying, yeah, there's something out here, we don't know what it is. And they said, well, what does it seem like? And they said, I don't know. But they took their microphone and they put it on, they put it in the air and let it play, or sorry, clicked it on, so the microphone picked it up, and then it went to the office, the sheriff's office dictaphone, or whatever it was, which was recording it. And he actually has that, and that's on that interview that I did with Thomas. And so it was picked up by the radio from the office, put onto the dictaphone, recorded, and the sheriff was the one who was doing it. That's the type of data you're looking for. That's the stuff that makes you go, there's something out here. The idea with both those families seeing, or both those families experiencing that's the data you're looking for. You have to vet it still, but it's interesting enough to validate it. Not to mention, every time I was looking at Echo Lake, I kept going there, and I think I have a little bit of series on my channel where it says, it's weird. Every time I'm up here, I just ran into another guy who said he saw Sasquatch. There's a trapper that's out in that area there, that's old guy. He's been up there. Oh yeah, they're out here. I talked to one of the resort guys out there, and he says, oh, you looking for Sasquatch? Man, there's a lot of stories about Sasquatch out here. The first print I found of it that I think was a solid Sasquatch print, and I think I have a picture of it, or a video of it. And I was such a moron. I'm so impatient sometimes. It was going up a berm, and you could see the toe prints, and you could see the heel mark, and it was a sand, because we have a lot of sand here, because it's lodgepole pine, and you could just see how the toes, the big toe and all the other four toes went right into the sand, so it curled in the sand as it lifted itself up to go. The track was about this long, and there was a one little dicky piece of root with a little sand thing on it, and I thought, oh, if I could just get that out, because I want a perfect shot, right? Because you want something crisp, you don't want something that looks goofy. And I went and I ticked it like that, and you could still see it, but it took away the full impact of those are 5 toes. Man, you could put your fingers right in there and go like this with it. And so I like that. Now, is it Sasquatch? I'm not 100% sure. I know the track. I saw the track. The track isn't a normal footprint. It's not a double bear print. I know what double prints are like, especially the energy discharged when they do it. It's not the same. It looks like a human footprint. There's another one that's, I think it's on the Kettle, used to be on the Kettle bike trail or whatever. 6 toes. These, I think it was 2 young guys, and they were riding their BMX bikes. And the one guy drove by it, and he stopped, and then the other guy, hey, look at this, and there was these 6 toes in this thing. Now that's interesting information too, because if you have digits that are deformed, there's usually environmental reasons for that in regards to what they're eating. So you're looking for all that kind of data. That depth of thinking is not that prevalent out there. But for me, do Sasquatches, can they go and dive underwater and then come up again? In other words, can they hold their breath? Because in order to do that, you have to not any other animals can do that. They won't drown. Like monkeys can't do that. They might splash in the water, or whatever, but they don't dive under the water and hold their breath because they'll drown. So you need a part of your brain developed to do that. Good information. Interesting enough, there's a report that's out of Kamloops where these hunters were out duck hunting. They had their decoys out. They saw this, it looked like it was a moose's head coming towards them. Went under the water, came back up, went under the water, came back up, and it wasn't a moose. It was, they reported it was a Sasquatch. And that's just a few kilometers away from another report that came in from a BFRO researcher who I know, she's really, really good, great personality, great interview. I think I interviewed her online too. And she had a witness. It turns out the witness happened to be her daughter's friend. And he contacted her saying, yeah, this thing crossed the highway when I was out doing this, blah, 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 blah. Doing this, I don't want to say because I don't have permission, you know. And there's also interesting things like Terrace Mountain there. Now that one I'm a little suspicious of because there was supposed to be a white Sasquatch sighted up there. If anybody's been up at Terrace Mountain, you'll notice there's lots of big white boulders up in Terrace Mountain, more than anywhere I've ever seen before. So, as Thomas says, there's only 3 possibilities. What they saw was a Sasquatch, what they saw was what they thought was a Sasquatch, or it's a hoax. Those are your only 3 possibilities. They've mistaken something else for a Sasquatch, you could say. And that's the way you look at it. You don't look at it, well, I had a chance to see a Sasquatch. You know, and I hear a lot of people tell their story about a Sasquatch. Well, did you see what it looks like? No. You know, and again, there's a lot of flack if you go against the norm that's out there. So again, Thomas, along with Jerry Matthews, there was this really weird call down, it's called the Klamath Calls and stuff like that. And the Chehalis in Merritt, or just by Merritt, there was this call that came in, phone call that came in, and the call was that there was this really strange yelling they thought was a Sasquatch. And John Green, who's one of the 4 horsemen, the first people who started investigating Sasquatch, they said, John phoned Thomas, I believe, and said, we want you and Jerry to go take a look at this. And so Thomas is ex-Canadian military, and so he and Jerry, which are great solid guys, they're oldie guys now though. They're like me basically, old farts. So they heard it, and the John Green asked Thomas, take a video camera with you, and he goes, well, we won't be able to film it because it's nighttime. He says, no, but you'll be able to get the recording because this is before the technology we have today, like this thing, you know. And so he thought, oh yeah, that's cool. So sure enough, they heard this really wicked sound, and it was, and the weird thing was, they looked at each other, Thomas, and it scared the hell out of them. They said, let's go. So they went out there on the Chehalis flats, I think he says. Thomas, I'm sorry if you're listening to this, I got that wrong. Chehalis, let me know. Sorry, Chehalis people, if I got that wrong too. But they went out there and they seen what it was that made the sound. And they were ecstatic that they found out what the sound was, but they weren't ecstatic about, now they had to tell what people thought was a Sasquatch is no longer a Sasquatch. And the system had a hard time with that. Because, I've never heard of Sasquatch or a coyote, because that's what they thought it was, what it was a coyote. I've never heard a coyote making that sound. And Thomas's words was, it was like a coyote came out of the cut line and it was making that weird freaked out call. And it's like something grabbed it from around its waist and was squeezing its guts out. And then he said, and then another coyote bounced out, just this lickety split and play, and they were both bouncing as if they're friends. So Thomas believes it's a certain cry of trying to attract another. And I agree with him. I think I've dealt with enough type of calls that are weird. And again, because people aren't really used to being in the bush and they're used to hearing stuff on TV of what sounds like whatever. But when you're not in the bush, I mean, how many different noises of the human? I mean, me getting up, I make 15 different sounds. Especially if you're over 60, you're, you know, what's that? Sasquatch? No, it's Leon trying to get up, you know. And so that's interesting. So another 2 interesting ones is, like, I don't like when you're in the Bigfoot community, the problem is it's almost in-house. It's like in the bubble, you know, so everyone's feeding off everyone's stories. What I try to do is go and do a lot of research with channels that have to do with search and rescue, channels that have to do with bushcraft, like Nick. I mean, he knows the bush. If I was ever in trouble in the bush, I would want Nick there. And he had an encounter in Ontario with that. I like, there's, it's called something Rat. He's a guy that used to I think he's a search and rescue guy, and he has a channel. And he used to just mock the Bigfoot. Oh, look at this Bigfoot! Oh, this Bigfoot! Then stuff started to happen to him in the bush, and he's in the bush a lot. He's not the guy that's just off the road. He's like way in the back. And he came back, and he started to. You could see over his thing, not influenced by the Bigfoot community, and that's what you want to look for: is data outside of the in-house, so you can see is there other angles of evidence that's out there. And he started running into stuff where he started to change his mind. He says, there's something out here. And there's one video when he looks around and he goes, I think there's a Sasquatch in this area. And it's funny because you knew he didn't think it was cool. Then you have a bit of a segue, but then you have people that are in the community that everything is a Sasquatch, and they build it themselves by telling stories without saying it's entertainment. They just say it's fact, and they attack everybody who attacks them, but they're not giving you anything, so it's really hearsay. You don't know whether you can trust them or not. But with what I was talking about there, one of the things I find fascinating is hunters. And so I've had a couple of hunters, well, I'm thinking of two specifically, that one had been hunting this area for 15 years, very comfortable. Like I said, he knows his area. He's been there for 15 years. He knows what looks normal there, what doesn't look normal there. He was out hunting, and as he was hunting, he saw somebody that was up by these willows, and his concern was, shoot, somebody's in my hunting area. So he got closer, and I realized the thing stood up, and he said, that's not a hunter. And then it walked across the road, and then into this other ravine. And this is up in Bear, Maine, I think it's called. And he won't go back into his hunting. Matter of fact, when he got home, his wife said, well, what are you doing? Because he was deer hunting. He said, she said, oh, you're back early, like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning. And he said, what are you doing back? Did you get one already? And she said that his face was like blood was just right out of his face. And he said, and again, if you did see something like that, who are you going to say? Except it's going to be so disturbing that you're going to say it to somebody, and then if you get PTS over seeing something that you don't even know what it is, you can't label it or anything like that, that's going to put a big brain trip on you. But he told her, and of course she was like, I believe that you saw Sasquatch kind of thing, right? That one's tamale, by the way. And then I had another guy who's a grizzly hunter, and he was hunting, and he knew this area for about 50 years, inside and out. And he contacted me and said, I got something strange happening on my property, and I don't know what it is. And I asked him, could you kind of elaborate a bit more? And he says, well, it's like it's a killing area. It's like a killing run. So I said, you mean like a killing run where it funnels down into a killing spot? And he goes, yeah, and there's all sorts of things. There's dead grizzly, dead black bear, dead moose, deer, and I don't understand that. And he was, I'm thinking of two different stories here in a way, because they both match. There's a similar one with a guy like that, and he won't go back into the area either. That one I was thinking about there was this other story was the family went, and I have to be cautious how I share this, they had bought this area because their whole family's been there their whole lives, and they have a house there, but they used to have a trailer on the site they lived in, and they built this house, and their kids came up, and they didn't talk to their kids about this or anything like that. And so what ended up happening was their daughter showed up with their husband. Oh yeah, that's why he contacted me. And he said that then they stayed. We said, hey, let us have the grandkids, and you guys go and stay in the trailer, the old like mobile home or whatever. And they went into the mobile home that night, and they came out the next day at breakfast time, and they came into the house for breakfast, and they said, "What the hell is going on?" And they're saying, "Well, what do you mean?" Well, all I heard was banging and smashing on the side of the building, and I think he said, I had this recorded somewhere too. He says, my wife looked at me and I looked at her, and we're like, do we tell them? Because you know, again, you don't want to sound stupid, right? And they said, yeah, we think we had a Sasquatch under thing there. And she goes, well, it just scares the hell out of me. And so they reached out to me because they were concerned that their grandkids were roaming the property, even though they've been on that property for years. They were worried that they might hurt the kids. Mm-hmm. And so I deduced to them, I'll back up a little bit to help with the story. They said, well, what do you do when they're doing that? And the mom said, I think it was the mom, or he said to his daughter, you go outside and you say, shut up and knock it off. And so this next night, of course, they're not really buying into the story. You know, yeah, well, you get a Sasquatch. And the same thing happened. Rocks were thrown on top of the mobile home and banging around and stuff like that. So she came out and said, shut the hell up. And they did. And so the guy asked me, he says, do you think my grandkids are in danger? I said, no, I think what happened was, has your wife's new husband ever been out to your place? No. Has your sorry, not your wife, your daughter's new husband been out to your place before? No. I said, has your daughter been out to your place? Oh yeah. Have the kids been out to your place? Yeah. I said, what? Yeah, I think what's happening there is, this is all speculation, of course, is that they don't know who that is. Mm-hmm. But they know who your daughter is, because they see you grow up with them in the area, along with, and then she has her kids, and she's brought her kids out. So that's probably what's going on. Again, this is that mystery part we were talking about, right? Yeah. Like, how do you vet any of that? How do you know any? I don't know, but it's an interesting story. And there's some stories I can't tell you that I wish I could, but I promise one particular person I can't. It's really bizarre stuff. Probably more bizarre than a moose on the back, a Sasquatch, infant Sasquatch in the back of a moose. And I know how crazy that sounds. You know, I don't know what to do with that. Who cares? You know, I like mystery. Mystery, the interesting thing about the human condition is the number one force in life to learn anything for any mammal is play. All mammals use play to learn the tools you need for life. And we seem to forget about that. We forgot about, you know, it's not about right or wrong or good or bad or looking stupid. You have been a moron. I have been a moron. We've all been morons, and you're going to be a moron. So get that away from you and just try out interesting things that keep you balanced. Use the scientific method. Check out Carl Sagan's baloney detection kit so you can understand what I'm actually saying there too. It's not about being a negative Nancy. It's about, do you want to know what you're looking at or don't you? At all costs. Basically, there's no sacred cows.